Whether it's Brock Lesnar lifting the ring with a tractor, a surprise return, or another big moment in the saga of the Bloodline, it seems as though after every WWE pay-per-view in recent times, there's always a big talking point. Those same talking points a while beforehand were different and had a much more negative fan response attached to them. For the past year, it seems as though WWE has been on a consistent run of good to great pay-per-views. More stadium shows, more international pay-per-views, crazy crowds, match of the year contenders, and angles that have you hooked. And having watched as many pay-per-views as I have, I don't remember a consistently good run like this ever. Not in the Ruthless Aggression era, not in the 2010s, not in the early 2020s, but for about a year now, there's been no pay-per-view which just comes and goes and gives you absolutely nothing of substance. And it all began with the Triple H takeover. It was Money in the Bank 2022, and the show, to say the least, was not the greatest. It was carried by a strong tag team match between the Street Profits and the Usos and a Liv Morgan cash-in, and aside from that, things were pretty rough. But then came Triple H's first show at the helm, SummerSlam 2022, live from Nashville, Tennessee. And the thing with SummerSlam is, for the longest time they told us that this was the second biggest show of the year, but they never actually did anything to make it feel like that. It didn't have its own identity. It wasn't the spectacle that a number 2 show should be, and at points, it was a joke. But as of 2021, they've started to treat the show much more differently. There's a theme to each show. The show comes to us from bigger venues, which gives it a more grand feeling. Simple things like redesigning the logo on a yearly basis and giving it an accompanying presentation has given it a lot more personality. This one was built around a match that not many people wanted to see, and that was these two. But before we got there, Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair perfectly topped off their trilogy with another great match. The same event at which Becky returned the year previous is the same show where Bianca got her stamp of approval and won this rivalry. And after this is where the surprises began, cause out came Bayley after a year away, and she didn't come alone. Triple H had re-signed Dakota Kai and brought up Io Sky from NXT, so in the beginning alone you had a huge moment made. Logan Paul had a great performance as he usually does in the WWE, and the rest of the show wasn't anything too crazy. And then came the main event, and somehow, someway, Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns were able to put on a masterclass of a last man standing match. Right off the hop, this was everything you'd want in a battle between two powerhouses. It was hard hitting, it was a brawl, the crowd was into it, two big boys just going out there punch for punch, and then Brock Lesnar just casually does something that I never thought I would see in the WWE. He raises the ring, sending Roman Reigns off the map like this was Fall Guys, but it was Roman who got the win. The Triple H PLE era had officially began. The next show was even crazier. Just a few weeks later, WWE made their return to the UK for a pay-per-view for the first time in 20 years when we got Clash at the Castle. And this show was not messing around. You already knew that the UK crowd was going to bring in another element to this show, and they did exactly that. Now, the change was obvious. Quality rather than quantity. And if you want quality, look no further than these two. Gunther and Sheamus went out there and they tore a hole through each other, beating the life out of one another until the other just couldn't go anymore, and Gunther won this match in a match of the year contender. That won't be the last time that I say that in this video. This was also the show where Dominic turned heel, and as they say, the rest is history. It came at such a big show, and the fact that he turned on his own dad only made things bigger for him. Rollins and Riddle had a fun match, and then we came to the main event, which had a big time feel unlike any other. Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns, undisputed Universal Championship on the line. Coming into this, Drew was built up like an actual monster, and they made you believe that he could actually do it. The crowd favorite really had a chance. It became more of a possibility when we had a Broken Dreams prelude before his entrance. Such a great moment to add to a hard-hitting match filled with so many close falls, but thanks to Solo, it wouldn't be. This show, though, was one for the ages. And when we talk about shows in the WWE, gimmick pay-per-views make up a lot of these shows. Hell in a Cell, Extreme Rules, TLC. Well, it seems as though most of those are a thing of the past now. But the Extreme Rules we got in 2022 was actually pretty fun, and a strength of that was leaning into the fact that it's called Extreme Rules, not Normal Rules. You guys remember how they called it that and would just have standard one-on-one matches? Not for this one. Every match had a stipulation. They leaned into what the gimmick show is supposed to be. Alright, pop in a ladder match, have an I Quit match, a strap match, an Extreme Rules match. The Brawling Brutes and Imperium went out there and tore the house down with the Donnybrook match, and this was just fun. It was a no DQ match, and it was everything a multi-man match like this needed to be. Edge and Finn Balor had an I Quit match that really exceeded my expectations. They brought the brutality, and it took Rhea holding Edge's wife hostage for him to finally quit. And then what this show was built on, and that was the Fight Pit match. And you'll see this more than once in this video, and that's introducing a new concept to a widespread WWE fan base and making it a reason to tune in. Something that fans that only watch the main roster probably hadn't seen before, and it was well executed. I'd also be remiss not to mention Bray Wyatt coming out to end the show, and the way this was presented had everyone talking coming into the show and going out of it. So, another strong pay-per-view. What's next? That was Crown Jewel. Now, for the longest time, these Saudi pay-per-views were just some other world, and not in a good way. These shows were flat out trash. They would just parade out nostalgia acts for the sake of it, and not only was it not fun to watch, it was literally putting the health and safety of those competitors on the line. These matches would come out of nowhere and for no reason. Do I need to remind you of the disaster that was Goldberg versus Undertaker, or the Brothers of Destruction versus DX? At one point, they brought in a fake Yokozuna. Those were some dark times. Now these shows aren't just their own little side quest, they factor into the overall grand scheme of the WWE, and oftentimes they'll also get big angles and matches. Bayley and Bianca went out there and just had the craziest, most SmackDown Here Comes the Pain match ever. Logan Paul and Roman Reigns was way better than it had any right to be. It had the perfect amount of big spots mixed with the craziness that makes wrestling so fun. Was it the greatest show? No, but it wasn't bad. Earlier I talked about them building a show around a foreign concept for the more untraditional fans with the Fight Pit. Well, instead of the proper Survivor Series, this year we got a new selling point, and that was War Games, something that so many fans had wanted on the main roster for the longest time. Not to mention that aside from the two War Games matches, Theory, Rollins, and Lashley had an extremely strong US Championship match. And then we also had two War Games matches. The men's one focused around the continuing story of the Bloodline, and it was a breath of fresh air. Rather than the traditional 5-on-5 or brand warfare concept that the WWE loves, we had something exciting and something fresh. We didn't have a pay-per-view in December, which is great. You don't need to have one every single month, so we didn't get a TLC or a Payback or whatever they pop into there. Instead, those TLC type stipulations, it feels as though have just been folded into the normal WWE pay-per-views. To start 2023, it was the Royal Rumble, and just by virtue of the poster, the rumors started to swirl. Would he finally stop going to every jungle under the sun and come back to the WWE? The answer to that is no. He's too busy showing up literally everywhere else, but the finish to the Rumble didn't really need him. To start off, we had the Rumble match, which personally speaking, I thought tailed off after Brock Lesnar got eliminated. It was building up to something special, and then for me, it just didn't hit that next gear. We had Cody return at number 30 from his pectoral injury and get the win, but before that, Logan Paul and Ricochet did a clothesline spot where both of them leapt from their side of the ring to meet in the middle. Also, Gunther versus Cody was a solid final two. I really enjoyed their mini match, and it was a great way to finish things off. There was a Mountain Dew Pitch Black match, which I thought looked cool, and it was ambitious, but the match was pretty trash. The Women's Royal Rumble match was a huge moment for Rhea going coast to coast to start her ascension to the top of the WWE, and then to end the night, Sami Zayn made his decision by turning on Roman Reigns, and the moment that chair shot hit was one of the loudest pops ever. To add to that, Jay left, so you were just questioning what happens next. It was legitimately one of the craziest pay-per-view endings I've ever seen, and it received a mainly positive reaction. It left you wanting more. The Bloodline story has been a key strength for WWE pay-per-view endings, and now you can completely tell that the focus was more on quality rather than quantity, and moments over minutes. That brought us to the Great White North, and on this day, I don't know if I saw clearly, but man, was I ever proud to be Canadian, because Montreal showed out for Elimination Chamber. The main event for this was Sami Zayn versus Roman Reigns, and just like Clash at the Castle, the crowd favorite was built up to actually look like a threat, and you didn't know. Do they actually do it? Do they actually pull the trigger? The atmosphere was electric. They were chanting "F you Roman," they were mercilessly booing him like there was no tomorrow, and it seemed like there very well wouldn't be. But just like Drew, Sami couldn't get the job done. Aside from that, the US Championship Elimination Chamber match was genuinely really strong. Everyone in that match got their time to shine, which is so important in a match like that. It was filled with a ton of big spots, and it led to a memorable match that's worth a rewatch. The women's match also had their spots, but it wasn't as strong as the men's. Not every match on these pay-per-views have been good though. There's one that stink up the entire card and make me question my fandom. Lashley versus Brock Lesnar was ass on a stick. Literally all of them I thought were bad, with each of them progressively getting worse. Never did I think that these two would miss every single time, but regardless, it was another pay-per-view away from home base in the US, and it was a fun night with lots to talk about. And if you want something to talk about, let's go to WrestleMania, where we said goodbye to the 30s. Was this show perfect? Absolutely not, but it did have some high points. It had star power, it had a huge feel to it, it had an exceptional stage. Over 2 nights, you saw Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, John Cena, Edge, Becky Lynch, Cody Rhodes, among others. Seth Rollins and Logan Paul was a match that many thought had big time potential, and it was really fun. It was shenanigans filled. It was, again, everything that it needed to be. Rey and Dom was also fun, from the entrances to the murdering of Booze for Dominic, and the story leading in was also strong. So when you saw Rey Mysterio standing there, it just all came together. Rhea and Charlotte started off slow, but man, that match really picked up, and the two delivered one of the best women's wrestling matches out there, Rhea getting the win and her crowning moment. And speaking of crowning moments, Owens and Zayn got theirs when they main evented WrestleMania and won the undisputed tag team titles. Night 1 was such a special night to be a fan. It was everything come together perfectly. You got to see big stars, you got surprises, you got great action and fun matches. Night 2 had the potential to be even better, and though there were bright spots, I don't think that it lived up to Night 1. One of my biggest gripes with this show was some of the matches and the overall pacing of it. I get that Brock Lesnar wanted to work with Omos, but man, it really didn't do anything for either of them. The women's showcase match wasn't that great either, so you started off on the wrong foot. However, the in-ring highlight from WrestleMania 39 for a lot of people, including myself, was the Intercontinental Championship match between Gunther, Sheamus, and Drew McIntyre. If you wanted destruction and a flat-out collision, that's exactly what you got. Chop after chop, big move after big move. What stood out to me in this match was, it's a triple threat match, so there's no rules. There were no weapon spots in this match, no announced table spot, just a pure slugfest between these three guys. The whole arena, me included, were giving these guys a standing ovation because they legitimately stole the show, with Gunther continuing his impressive IC Championship reign. Edge and Finn Balor was cut short due to Finn getting busted open, but we still got a really sweet coup de grace attempt from Finn regardless. Also, I thought that Finn should have been the one to go over. And then we got to the main event match, which was one of the most unpredictable main events in such a long time, between Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. And these two delivered in the match. Don't let the finish deter you from what was an excellent match. The crowd investment was high and there were so many near falls, and it looked like it was Cody's night. But again, thanks to Solo, it wouldn't be. To me, it almost felt like the Samoan Spike bit was supposed to be a part of the match, where there was supposed to be a kick out rather than it being the closing sequence. To me, it wasn't really that Roman won, it was more so that the finish felt kinda anticlimactic, but what can you do? It was still a good match by all accounts. Some other highlights were the men's showcase match from Night 1 and Bianca versus Asuka, which was good, but it suffered from being the follow-up to the triple threat match. And that was WrestleMania. Night 1 was definitely the more complete show, where I thought Night 2 didn't really live up to the night before, but nonetheless, a fun WrestleMania. How could I forget Backlash, live from San Juan, Puerto Rico, one of the most rowdy crowds in WWE history. There's being a crowd, and then there's a crowd adding to the experience, and these guys did just that. They turned what's usually a B-tier pay-per-view into a party, and it was just fun. Bad Bunny and Damian Priest in a San Juan street fight. Bad Bunny coming out to one of the loudest ovations in the company's history. The whole crowd singing Chambea. Shout out to WWE for finally learning that Booker T isn't the only song that he has. And these two just casually tore the house down. Genuinely, Bad Bunny has no right to be as good as he is, and I think every wrestling fan has to respect him because of the respect that he gives to the business. He honestly doesn't have to be taking these bumps, but there he was, living out a childhood fantasy, and it was amazing. We had the LWO come out, Carlito rocked up. It was violent, it was fast-paced, and it was also the moment where many fans realized the genius of Damian Priest. Zelina Vega also had an emotional homecoming, and again, these matches and this pay-per-view, in-ring wise, wasn't the craziest, but the crowd amplified everything so much more. Night of Champions was another strong showing, and it was sold on two things: who would become the first ever World Heavyweight Champion, and would Roman and Solo actually win the tag team titles. AJ and Seth did what they always do, and they showed out with Seth Rollins becoming the new World Heavyweight Champion. We also had a really special moment for Sami Zayn competing in Saudi Arabia, and you could just tell how much this meant to him from the look on his face. The match was your normal Roman Reigns tag match with all the tropes you'd expect, but it was what happened during it which left everyone talking. We had the super kick that was heard around the world when Jimmy Uso finally made his decision to stand against Roman, and the breakup of the bloodline was underway. After a few weeks of TV, we were back to the United Kingdom for Money in the Bank, where the bloodline civil war took center stage. But coming in, the hype was around a different man, and that was LA Knight, who many fans wanted to win the Money in the Bank ladder match. That didn't happen though. Logan Paul and Ricochet continued to make moments together. This looked scary, and they did slip up, and the landing didn't look the best, but I'm glad none of them are injured. At the end of it all, it was Damian Priest standing tall, took the win, and I know a lot of people wanted to see LA Knight win. I did too, but some fans are just writing off Damian Priest because it wasn't the guy they wanted. There's big time potential with this man to become a huge star in the WWE. Every time he's been put into a prominent position, he's shown that he can hold that spot, and storyline wise, there's so much to lean into with the Judgment Day. Do they have Finn win in a rematch at SummerSlam with Rollins only for Priest to become world champion after a cash-in, or do they do a slower burn? There's a lot of different directions this could go. We had Shayna randomly turn on Ronda, which I don't think anyone expected at this point. Gunther had another strong showing against Riddle. I feel as though the match needed another 5 minutes to really get into that next gear. He retained, and then the roof blew off the place when Drew McIntyre returned, and the crowd lost its mind. After so much talk of contract disputes and creative issues and whatever, there he was, and it looks like these two are going to destroy one another at SummerSlam. So cool, you get your big return, everyone will go home happy. But no, out comes John Cena out of nowhere, making his second Money in the Bank return in 3 years. And what an amazing moment this was. Mad respect to him for showing up. The women's ladder match was uncontrolled chaos. There were some botchy spots in there. You could really tell that there were some mess ups, but it was a lot of fun to watch. Everyone was flying around everywhere, and though it wasn't perfect, I thought it was the best one to date for the women. Io Sky getting the win after such a creative finish, handcuffing Bayley and Becky to each other through the rungs of the ladder and climbing to victory. To end the show, it was the Bloodline Civil War, the Usos versus Roman and Solo. And let's just cut to the chase. Roman Reigns got pinned for the first time in 3.5 years. And the man who did it was the first person who ever pinned him. The same one who did it in 2013. Jey Uso, the same man who had been tormented since 2020, the same man who Roman knew would never take his spot, was able to keep his shoulders down to the mat. 1, 2, 3. Crazy moment. There was also a cool kick out where Roman and Solo hit Jey with a spike spear combo. Then Roman tried to pin both twins, but they wouldn't say die. The story of Jey Uso continues, and the question becomes, what next? The crowd at Money in the Bank amplified everything so much more and gave us yet another great WWE event, which is what this retrospective is about, the resurgence of WWE pay-per-views. The amount of crazy crowds we've had in the past year is actually insane. On average, there's about 7 matches on the show, and in the past year, there's been so many different things that have happened in these shows, from this to this to this, and so much in between. I believe focusing on quality over quantity has helped the last little bit. Content for the sake of content is something that you guys know I don't believe in. Not having a pay-per-view every 3 weeks or every single month has also helped. The stadium shows feel big, and by virtue of them needing to sell these out, they put on bigger matches. With that, there's more international pay-per-views. Leaving the US has given us some of the craziest crowds in a long time. Matches matter. Storylines also matter. But as always, this is just one guy's observation and one guy's thoughts. Let me know, what do you guys think of WWE pay-per-views in recent memory? Are they actually more consistent? Are they better? Do you think they've gotten better? Or are they just the same? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know. I'll catch you guys in the next one.